live.
Yeah.
Is this right live?
Today, we're going to be doing something, starting something. We'll see if we get through it all tonight. I'm feeling a little congested and I can't stay up too late, so if we have to, we'll spill over into a part 2. But we want to look at Onslaught. Now, Onslaught is a neat set.
It's not showing.
It came at a time in Magic's history where there was a big transition about to take place. Onslaught was the big set for a block that was the last block before the first big border change, where they went to the what they called at the time the new borders. Now they've got so many variations, who cares anymore? And they print old border stuff all the time. But at the time, they were gearing up for that change, and Onslaught was the last block with the classic borders.
Okay, I don't see anyone in yet. There's one person that could be me.
That's probably, yeah. Anyway, so I guess we should. Well, let's see if this will work or if I have to pull this out of here.
If you need
for
to
my
type
intro.
If you need to type anything, because I'm just going to run to the store really quick. If you need to type anything in.
All right, that's not very clear. Let's pull this out of here for now. This is the rules insert that came with a starter deck when you got a starter deck of Onslaught when the set first came out. Expert level, so this was still fairly new concept, adding these levels to the Magic products and other products too. I've seen it on their Harry Potter cards. I think they might even put it on Pokemon stuff early on. So Morph. Onslaught sets present a new ability called Morph. You may play a creature with Morph face down, paying 3 instead of its mana cost. A face down creature is a 2/2 colorless creature with no abilities, no name, no creature type, and mana cost 0. No one but you knows what it really is. At any time you could play an instant, you could pay the creature's morph cost, located next to the word morph on the card, to turn it face up. Simply flip it over and pay the cost, and when it's turned face up, it becomes whatever the card says it is. And some of them have abilities. That's increasingly true in the sets that followed it up.
Oh, sorry, just give me a
What
second.
Are we doing?
I'm just making sure Wi-Fi's on in case, because it's not on. You're good.
Okay. You can look at the face-down creatures you control at any time. You can't look at face-down creatures other players control. When a face-down creature leaves play, it must be shown to all players. All face-down creatures in play must be turned over when the game ends. If you control multiple face-down creatures, you must make sure everyone knows the order they came into play. You can use dice or other markers to help you keep track. Creature that has been turned face up is the same creature that it was face down. It keeps any enchantments, counters it has. Damage dealt to it carries over, and turning it face up doesn't count as coming into play. Turning cards face up doesn't use the stack. Okay, they've changed the rules on that a little since then, I think. Opponent can't respond. When you want to turn over a face down creature, no one can stop you. Some spells and abilities turn creatures with morph face up or face down. If a creature is turned face up this way, it becomes whatever its card type says. But if its morph cost isn't paid, the creature is turned face down. And the creature it becomes a 2/2 colorless creature with no abilities, name, creature type, etc. So, all that big spiel. And it still caused rule confusions at the time. Maybe I'll get into that in a minute here. Fear. So Fear was an enchantment card from Alpha, so this has been around for a while. But they actually made it a keyword ability. It simply means this creature cannot be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. I think they've phased it out again since then. Yeah. Then you've got tribal cards. And they went to pretty traditional tribes that have been around, I think, for all the colors since Alpha pretty well. Many Onslaught creatures and spells have abilities that refer to creature types. They're nicknamed tribal cards because they work better when creatures from the same creature type, are in play. Some creatures have more than one type. For example, a zombie cleric is both a zombie and a cleric. Spells that affect zombies will work on it. Spells that affect clerics will also work on it. The mist form creatures, a wily bunch of blue illusionists, let you change their creature types to the types of your choice. When changing a creature's type, it loses all its old types and gains its new one that you've chosen. Face down creatures don't have creature types, so they can't normally be affected by tribal spells. And the symbol up there, that's the expansion symbol for Onslaught. It's meant to look like the original morph creatures did, more or less. Cycling came back. Onslaught set revisits the cycling ability, an old favorite first printed in Urza's Saga set. If you're holding on to a card with cycling, you can play its cycling cost and discard it from your hand to draw a card. This time around, the costs are more interesting, and some cards even have extra effects when cycled. Since cycling is an activated ability, you can play it at any time you could play other abilities. You're not playing a spell, so cards like Counterspell can't counter it. This led to a few interesting things. I think the original cycling cards all cost 2 to cycle, if I recall correctly. Might be wrong on that, but... Chain spells. The Onslaught set contains 5 chain spells. Each time a chain spell affects you or a permanent you control, you can chain it to someone or something else. For example, Chain Smog says, target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. That player may copy the spell and may choose a new target for that copy. When Chain Smog, either the actual card or just a copy, targeting you resolves, you can make a new copy of the chain spell to someone else. Yeah. So that's a little summary of the main rules that were introduced for the set.
I'm trying to wait for a mod to come so I can...
Right. Well, doesn't seem like anybody's coming to this one.
Well, it says there's a couple people there, but I just don't want to leave without someone kind of watching chat.
So one thing I just wanted to make note of regarding that morph ability and some of the confusion it caused. There were all kinds of weird interactions with it. One of which was clone. You clone a morphed creature. You don't technically, if your opponent played it, know what it is. So, while it would technically have morph and the morph costs, you wouldn't be aware of what they are until you saw your opponent flip theirs. Another interesting and more complicated interaction was with cards like Camouflage. You may rearrange your attacking creatures and place them face down, revealing which is which only after defense is chosen. If this results in impossible blocks, yada yada yada. So as you can imagine, if your cards are already face down, and you're supposed to mix them up and not let people know which is which, but you also, by the rules, have to tell them what order things came into play at, well, that causes some conflicting confusion right there. To say nothing of trying to flip a card upside down, which is already upside down, without revealing what it is. So, yeah, this card led to some headaches, and generally we just avoided playing it. If anyone has an official ruling on that, I'm sure it's changed over the years anyway. So yes, Onslaught had a creature type or 2 that were key for each set, for each color.
Hey, Becca.
And the story continued on from Odyssey, with a lot of the main characters coming over. Yes, welcome, Becca. Thank you. Glad to see you. So, Achroma. The Achroma card itself didn't get printed in this set. It came later. But it was definitely a powerful angel. Same thing with Phage. Phage was originally Jessica, the sister of Kamal, who is in this set. And the storyline here features Kamal a bit more prominently. But there's all kinds of allusions in this to things that come later in the walk anyway. So, Chroma's Blessing is an instant for 3. Creatures you control gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, and you can pay a single white to cycle it. Discard this card from your hand and draw a card, if it's not being particularly useful to you. Cleric saw her as a divine gift. She saw them only as allies in her war against Phage. Now, unfortunately, I'm starting off with white here, because that's the numbering scheme. With this set, they did have the numbering scheme, and as you can see, 350. This is a large set to start out the block.
Welcome, Alias.
Forgive my voice a little. I'm getting a little bit congested all of a sudden.
Believe it or not, Alias, we missed you Saturday night. We did.
Yeah. The next card here, which I'm missing, would have been Akroma's Vengeance. So, 6 cast, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. And you can cycle it for 3. So, a big fat board wipe. I think Yokel Hopes was similar, except it destroyed all artifacts, creatures, and lands for the same... Well, it was in red, but it also cost 6, and you couldn't cycle it. So, it's sort of in that lines, except different things, and it leaves the lands on the board, but wipes the other stuff. So, a potentially usable card in the right circumstances, for sure. Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the few cards that I'm missing, and half the cards I'm missing, I think, all just about are in white. For some reason. Maybe I made a soldier deck and then misplaced it or something.
Anything else you want me to grab? I get more carrots, but...
I don't know. If the fish is a good price or something, maybe. I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Ancestor's Prophet. A 1/5 for 5. Tap 5 untapped clerics you control to gain 10 life. And this was one of the lords. There's at least one of these in each color. There might be... No, I think there's more than that. I think it's for each of the creature types that they feature. So the clerics have one here, and there's also one for soldiers. In white, I believe. Astral Slide. This was a potential tournament card. Just an uncommon. But whenever a player cycles a card, you may remove target creature from the game. If you do, return that creature to play under its owner's control at end of turn. There weren't as many creatures at the time with come-into-play effects. But the previous block did have some for sure. And there had been some ever since Visions, I think. So they were around. But more often it was just a way to control your opponent's creatures and get past them. But it could be used either way. And it often was. Cycling was a popular mechanic. As a way to get cards, especially with cards that were giving you bonuses. Akroma was such a good character. Yes, absolutely, it was. She was, whatever. I've actually got a shirt with a picture of her on the back that I got given to me from my brother. But yeah, Astral Slide was definitely used in a lot of competitive decks. Or Extraction, less so. 1 white, 1 colorless, instant. Put target enchantment on top of its owner's library, and you can cycle it for 2. You know, it'll gum things up a bit. That's about all you can say for it, really. Strategically, if you need to deactivate something, you know, not a useless card. The ability to cycle gives it, makes it so it won't be sitting there if your opponent's not playing enchantments, at least. Every day, Order Clerics contained as much of the Mirari's energy as possible, hoping to delay on Terra's demise. I guess I skipped some of the others too. Flavor text up here. We have faced horrors of war and terrors beyond imagining. We will overcome the uncertainties of this new life. Next we've got Orification. Enchantment for 4. Whenever a creature deals damage to you, put a gold counter on it. Each creature with a gold counter on it is a wall in addition to its other creature types. Walls can't attack. So, basically, in addition to being a wall, it also has Defender under the current rules, I believe. When Orification leaves play, remove all gold counters from all creatures. I missed you guys too. Thanks for coming. Next, this guy's fun. The Avon Brigadier. 6 cost for a 3/5 flying bird soldier. All other birds get +1/+1. All other soldiers get +1/+1. So he's especially good if you're playing other bird soldiers. He represents what little pride the order has left. Bird up, yep. Bird decks could be fun. White didn't traditionally have a whole lot of big flyers, but it certainly got more as time went on, I think. And this set was definitely part of that process. I mean, it always had Sarah Angel, but angels were few and far between. At least good ones. Avon Soulgazer. 5 for a 3/3 flying, and you can pay 3 to look at target face-down creature, so it could scout your morph creatures. Every question has a proper answer. Every soul has a proper place. And Battlefield Medic. 1/1 for 2. Tap it to prevent the next X damage that will be dealt to target creature this turn, where X is the number of clerics in play. So it could prevent quite a bit. Personally, I still prefer Samite Healer, just for the ability to prevent damage to me as well. But in a Devoted Cleric deck, this could get very more capable of preventing lots of damage anyway. Here's the next white card that I couldn't scare up in time. And this is one that I'm pretty sure I had, because I did have a soldier deck at one point, so it's probably hiding in there somewhere, wherever that got to. It's the Catapult Master. 5 for a 3/3. Tap 5 untapped soldiers you control. Remove target creature from the game. So, once you get a bunch of soldiers or soldier tokens in play, this can help clear the field pretty effectively. There's no I in team, but there is a we in weapon. I remember I had Dothy War Chiefs and other stuff that came through in the later sets. It was good fun. Here's the Catapult Squad. Yeah, they can win you the game. Har har har, yeah. Catapult Squad. A 2/1. Tap 2 untapped soldiers you control. Catapult Squad deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. So sort of the mini version of the Catapult Master. Chain of Silence. So this is the first of those chain cards. Each color got one. I think they even all cost 2. One of the color and another. I could be wrong on that, but I think so. Instant. Prevent all damage that target creature would deal this turn. That creature's controller may sacrifice a land. If the player does, he or she may copy this spell and may choose a new target for that copy. So on its own, it's just preventing some damage. It's not too exciting. But when it starts to interact with combat, if you got, a group of creatures you attacked with, and there's a bunch of, 3/3s or whatever, and they're blocking creatures the same size, well, all of a sudden you prevent theirs from dealing damage. Yours kills it, you can come out ahead that way. And then they could bounce it and do something to another one of the matches. So it certainly could cause a little bit of disruption. This is one that I've used at times in some of my decks. 4 is a little bit pricey, but as Circle of Solace comes into play, choose a creature type. And you can pay 2, just like a Circle of Protection, except it costs twice as much to play and twice as much to use, and it's for creature types instead of specific colors. The next time a creature of the chosen type would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. Pretty niche, but like I say, I have used it on occasion. The chain can save you from a Blightsteel Colossus. That it can. Convalescent Care. Enchantment for 3. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 5 life or less, you gain 3 life and draw a card. A little bit risky to set up, but, drawing an extra card and gaining a bit of life back are, helpful abilities. Enlightenment comes most swiftly at life's end. Crowd favorites. 7 for a 4/4. But you can pay 4 to tap target creature or to give it +0/+5 until end of turn. Both those abilities can be handy, but it is expensive to use and expensive to play, so you need It's definitely a late game card. The rabble likes them. Make sure they win. Then book them for tomorrow. It's talking about the battles at the Colosseum there. Crown of Awe. And again, I think there's a crown in each color as well. So 2 for enchanted creature. Enchanted creature has protection from black and red. Sacrifice Crown of Awe. Enchanted creature and other creatures that share a creature type with it gain protection from black and red until end of turn. So this can really have a big effect on the battle if your opponent's in those colors and all of a sudden all your creatures have protection and can't be blocked by. You can end the game pretty quick, aside from it just being able to save your creatures from something like a Pyroclasm or Earthquake. I think this one saw some use at times. Crude Rampart. Sounds like my workplace. Might be working for the Cabal Patriarch. Yeah. Sometimes it seems that way. Crude Rampart. 4/5 for 4. Walls can't attack, and it's a wall. And Morph for 5. So you can play it face down as a 2/2 for 3, and then turn it face up at any time for its Morph cost. So this could be a little tricky, because if you attack while it can attack, and then in the middle of the combat morph it, that was, I think, allowed. Also, I just want to comment on the rate you got for morph creatures. A 2/2 for 3 was generally at this time considered to be sort of standard, nothing special, bread and butter. What you get for a 3-cost creature was a 2/2. And that dates back all the way to Alpha, pretty much, where green got the efficiently costed, by comparison, Grizzly Bear as a 2/2 for 2 instead of 3. But most colors, you got the Grey Ogre, you got the Pearled Unicorn, you got the Skaith Zombie. They were all 2/2s for 3. Daru Cavalier. 4 for a 2/2 first strike soldier. When it comes into play, you may search your library for a card named Daru Cavalier, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you do, reshuffle your library. So basically, it's drawing you a card to replace itself, but it's replacing itself with another copy of itself. This same ability got used later on, what was it, Squadron Hawk, and was very popular to get a 1/1 flying for 2. But to get a 2/2 first strike for 4, this didn't catch on as much at the time. It's just a little bit too pricey. Next, we've got the Daru Healer. Cleric. Would you guys keep it down, please?
Sorry, we're having a laughing about.
I see that. Daru Healer. A 1/2 for 3. Prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn by tapping it, and you can morph it for a single white. So, this one starts out bigger and then shrinks, but gains the tapping to prevent damage ability when you morph it. A little bit different dynamic there. The Daru Lancer, another morph creature, 3/4 first strike, and it can morph for 4. Or you can pay 6 for it. So 6 for a 3/4 first strike wasn't great even then. But you could be sneaky with it, play it for 3. And then when you needed it to all of a sudden grow and gain first strike, you could pay 4. So you ended up paying more in the long run and over 2 turns, but it sort of included its own combat trick. So I do remember these being experimented with. I don't think they ever saw much in the way of competitive play. At this time, damage went on the stack, and you could morph before it resolved. Yes. Yeah, I remember that too. That was part of it. Is this all from Stronghold set, or are you doing all the related sets to it? No, I'm basically just doing the sets that I had enough to assemble. So, Stronghold I had, and Onslaught I had. And they're each from interesting and transitional periods, because Stronghold was the last set before they introduced colored set symbols in Exodus, and this was the last major set before they went to the new card frames. So that was part of it. But yeah, there's the sets that I do are mostly unconnected. Occasionally you get stuff like Alliances and Cold Snap. I did both of those, which are technically part of the same block now. So, but no, I found this an interesting set, so I collected more of it, and so I have more of it to show. So that's just generally the idea with it. Daunting Defender, 3/3 for 5. If a source would deal damage to a cleric you control, prevent one of that damage. These could be a little bit annoying if you stacked a few of them on the table at once, because then you're preventing a lot of damage to your whole board if you're playing a cleric deck. But yeah, thanks for joining us, Dave. I seem to remember that popping up a couple times, but it does take a lot to get going being a 5-drop, even back then. Dawning Purist. 3 cost, 2/2. You can morph it for 2. And when Dawning Purist deals combat damage to a player, you may destroy target enchantment that player controls. So it can be sneaky. It attacks as a 2/2, and they think they're just going to take 2, but then you morph it and take out one of their enchantments. And that's generally the way it would be, unless you had some other way to get it through. If they had enchantments that they wanted to keep safe, they wouldn't let it otherwise. Here's your instant for 4. Creatures of the type of your choice get +0/+4 until end of turn. Again, could save your board if you're in a tribal type deck. And again, in white, you have birds, you have soldiers, you've got clerics, you've got a number of ones you can choose from for deck building. And the sets on either side of this, especially the sets that came after, help to fill out those themes. On the battlefield, we repay all the order has given us. Demystify, destroy target enchantment for 1 white. Pretty basic. And again, this set marked the shift, as we'll see when we get to green too. That white has always had ways to deal with artifacts and enchantments in the early sets, and green was locked into destroying enchantments. Well, they made it a little bit... well, no, green had crumble and stuff too, but they made it a little bit more efficient for green to deal with both. And green gets the naturalize in this set, which previously had been a white thing with disenchant, and white is down to just the instant that destroys enchantments. Simple, clean, and easy. Yep, that it is. But pretty narrow, because not all decks run enchantments. Disciple of Grace. Protection from black, you can cycle it for 2. So again, handy to have if your opponent's playing black, and if not, you could cycle and get rid of it. Dread was foreign to her as the landscape ahead. So yeah, using cycling as a way to include sort of sideboard cards in your deck. Not that this was entirely, even if they're not playing black, it's not completely useless. It's just not very good. So it was one way that the ability was applied for sure. Dive Bomber. Here's a bird soldier. 2/2 flying for 4. And you can tap and sacrifice it. Dive Bomber deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Your graves will lie beneath my final nest. And then we've got the Doubtless one. Every color had one of these avatars for one of their creature types. And so they're all 4 cost for a star with power and toughness equal to the number of, in this case, clerics you have in play. And this one has the extra ability, when it deals damage, you gain that much life. So these saw use. I remember they were quite popular in some decks. It was a way for Goblin's deck to get a great big goblin. But yeah, I definitely remember these being used. I experimented with a cleric's deck. They hadn't been that much power creep in sets up to this point, as I recall. It started to ramp up a lot more after this, especially with creatures. That's true. I remember this set was considered, when it first came out, power crept on creatures. You started to see that happening. Not only with creatures that had previously been printed now having more useful creature types with the same stats basically being available, but also things like Elvish Warrior, 2 green for a 2/3, which we'll see shortly. That was above rate for the time. That was a misprint on Herloon Minotaur, and they didn't like it. But now they were giving it to a creature just as regular rate, albeit in green. But it was also an elf, so yeah, they were power creeping now. But now none of these creatures seem very good compared to the creatures that are around now. The power creep has just continued well past them. Yeah, they actually power crept even more in this very year. Yeah. It just keeps continuing as far as I can tell, especially with the creatures. They haven't power crept the old spells out yet. They're still pretty good. Exalted Angel, I think this still has some demand and play with it. Again, 6 for a 4/5 flying with lifelink, basically. Not great for stats, but the ability to morph it, and at 4, so you can play it a little quicker that way and get the surprise, does give it some use. So, and it's just a cool angel. However, Future Sight has some cards that still slam. Middle Ordeal, for example. Yeah, there's a bunch. Foothill Guide. 1 white for 1/1 protection from goblins. And it can morph for 1. Which again means it shrinks, but gains the protection from goblins. Or you could just play it on the first turn. Yeah, again, it's sort of a sideboard thing, I would say. Like any pest, goblins must be repelled quickly or they multiply. Yeah, well, I mean, Yawgmoths will... that's one of those sort of... we tried to fix it, but kind of messed it up in the process. Now, here's another one that I'm missing. Again, they seem to all be in white. Or, well, not all, but lion's share of them. So this one here... Oops. Let's grab that. Was... Galecaster. 6 for a 3/3 flying, and you can pay 6. Next time damage would be dealt to Galecaster or you this turn, that damage is dealt to target creature or player instead. Being able to shift damage from you or one of your things to something else of your choice, very handy, but this is expensive to use for sure. 6 to play, 6 to use, and it's a 3/3, so whatever the equivalent of Lightning Bolt or Incinerate that's around at the time, this would tend to disappear pretty quick unless you find a way to protect it. But yeah, still, being able to play it repeatably is nice, but 6 is a big price tag. Decent ability, though. Next, we got your basic 2/2 for 2 Soldier. So again, this is just originally your 2/2 for 3 is what you would expect for your generic common. And of course, you had things like White Knight, which, you know, you would argue is pretty much strictly better. It does require a little bit more strict on the white, but it's got the extra abilities. But this is part of the creep in one sense, because now white's getting the Grizzly Bear too. And it's a soldier, which in this set is a useful creature type. The turning of the tide always begins with one soldier's decision to head back into the fray. We got Grassland Crusader, a 2/4 for 6. And you can tap it, target elf or soldier, gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Honestly, it's just overcosted. But it does count as a cleric and a soldier, so it fits into either theme. I could see picking it up in a draft or something, but I don't think, even if I was building soldiers, I would tend to use this. He is.
We should make him a mod. I don't know if he cares. He probably doesn't want to be a mod.
Probably not. Everyone deserves a chance to live. My job is to make sure they get it. Nice sentiment.
Hey guys,
it's been a long time, so I'm less sure, but I think Astral Slide would turn your morph creatures face up when they come back. Huh. Yeah, that might be so. I'd have to look that up. I'm not sure. Yeah, that alias is confirming that. So, yeah, it makes sense. Gravel Slinger.
$2 a bag.
That's better than it has been.
Yep.
Could you give me a tea and something to blow my nose with?
Sure.
Thanks. Gravel Slinger, 1/3 for 4. And you can tap it to have it deal 1 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, and you can morph it. So, again, something to be a little tricky with. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. I don't actually remember it getting used much. But it's got neat art. I kind of like that scythe it's got. Although it's supposed to be gravel slinging, so is that supposed to be... That's just spinning at the end there? I guess. So this is technically the one who stones, I suppose. Blinking them will turn them, yeah. Gust Cloak Harrier. These used to see some play. As a 2/2 flying for 3. When it becomes blocked, you may untap it and remove it from combat. So, gave you a blocker if it was blocked and would save itself. So that's
Did
nice.
I get you snacks? I didn't.
Banking
I don't know what you want. If you want carrots, then sure.
Yeah, we can't really pass those through the stream, though. The Aven streaked toward the ground and vanished. There's a few of these Gust Cloak guys. Next, we got the Gust Cloak Runner, 1/1 for 1. When it becomes blocked, you may untap it and remove it from combat. Cabal spies tried to follow the Order's movements. Trying to follow the Order's movements are constantly frustrated by tracks that stop dead. Excuse me for a second.
Yep.
Wow. This is...
We should get you some sinus medication.
This is an awful time for stuffiness to start setting in. Anyway.
It's all in camper.
Gust Cloak Savior. 5 for a 4/3 flying bird soldier. So again, he goes nice with that earlier commander. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may untap that creature and remove it from combat. So, he helps all your people with the Gust Cloak ability, basically. Oh snap, that's a... Well, again, it's not a complete set. I am missing a few cards, but it was a good one. And the reason I have this much of the set was... I think probably around the time Zendikar came out, I started to appreciate the fetch lands a little bit more, and it still wasn't too expensive at the time. So I picked up 3 boxes. This one's full of all the extra commons, basically, and this one's got a mix of commons and uncommons. So I did open a fair bit of this set. Incidentally, speaking of fetch lands, out of 3 boxes, any guesses how many I pulled? Yeah, I'll give a minute before I put up the answer. Gust Cloak Sentinel. A 3/3 for 4. Soldier. Whenever Gust Cloak Sentinel becomes blocked, you may untap it and remove it from combat. Entire platoons have mysteriously vanished from battle, leaving enemy weapons to slice through empty air. That's the soldier. And then we've got the good old Gust Cloak Skirmisher. A 3/2 flyer for 4. And whenever it becomes blocked, you may untap it and remove it from the game. Not quite as efficient as the Harrier, but I still remember this one seeing some use too.
Not on sale, but something to get used
Right.
Friday.
Thanks. And then Harsh Mercy. This I actually had to pull out of one of my piles from a deck I was planning on building.
For Lucas.
Oh, he'll love it. You want to show that?
Yeah.
Or?
So every Christmas we like to get the kids ornaments that are personalized for them, something that they're interested in.
Lucas loves eggnog.
And Lucas loves eggnog. So as soon as it comes out, and actually sometimes it's around Halloween, before Halloween.
Does it have the chicken milk on the back? It's not bilingual?
No.
No.
No, not bilingual.
Oh, okay. In French, it's lait de poule.
Yeah.
So, chicken milk.
And they had something.
So yeah, Harsh Mercy. I had this. I discovered it in my pile of slivers that were extra slivers. Each player chooses a creature type. Destroy all creatures that aren't of a chosen type. The type chosen this way. They can't be regenerated. So, if your creatures are all the same type, this becomes almost a one-sided board wipe. They could save one or two of their creatures, probably, but it could be... Oh, you found some.
That's all they really had.
Right. Anyway, we don't have any guesses on the number of fetch lands that I found, so that's okay. I'll share anyway. I opened 3 boxes of Onslaught, and ended up with 6 fetch lands, so an average of 2 fetch lands per box. So, go figure. But I got a lot of other cool cards as well, so I'm not complaining. This set did have some neat stuff, no question. Improvised Armor. Enchant creature for 4. Enchanted creature gets +2/+5. So it is a fairly good-sized buff, but that's expensive for an enchant creature typically. Then you can cycle it away for 3, which is more expensive than you usually want to pay for cycling, but it's an option. I trust what I make for myself. Do you trust more what is made for you by another? Depends how good a craftsman I am. In Spirit. So for 3, instant, untap target creature. It gets +2/+4 until end of turn. You know, typical sort of surprise giant growthy effect, but you're paying a little extra and you get to untap the creature.
Did you already have a mug or do you need another one?
Sorry?
Did you have a mug on the go or?
Somewhere. We will force the Cabal into their own pits. Sometimes they do pack openings. Yeah, on occasion I do. I don't have a lot of magic to open at the moment, but we did open a box of the Lord of the Rings set not too long ago. And when I did my Fallen Empires review, I had some spare packs sitting around, so I opened a pack then. I don't have any packs of this one sitting around today, though. 5 for a 2/4 for Iron Fist Crusher. Iron Fist Crusher may be blocked by any number of creatures. Sorry, may block any number of creatures. So it's sort of got the old 2-headed giant thing going on, and being able to block multiples. And again, it can morph. So it's a neat ability. It rarely comes up, but it is a neat ability. Next, we got the first of the 5, 1 for each color, big legendary champions from the Dueling Colosseum. So here we have Jareth, the Leonin Titan. 6, they all cost 6, I believe. For a Cat Giant Legend. For a 4/7 is what you get for your 6. And whenever it blocks, it gets +7/+7 until end of turn. So basically, you get the built-in righteousness effect. And Jareth, pay 1 white, gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So he is tough to take out. No question about that. But of all of them, I recall this being probably the least used to my memory, just because most people prefer to attack, which automatically makes the top ability far less useful. So then you're just paying for a 4/7, which isn't the best rate for an offensive creature. It's not horrible by any chance, and I'd certainly snap it up in a draft. But he's pretty good, but he wasn't the most used to my memory out of the champions each color got. Next, I'm missing a card again.
Oops.
And this thing keeps going to sleep. Where's Jareth? Where'd he go? There he is. So yeah, it must have been a soldier deck that I misplaced somewhere, because here's another soldier themed card that I couldn't find. 3 cost. Attacking doesn't cause soldiers to tap, and you can pay 3 to put a 1/1 white soldier creature token into play. So basically, what this reminds me of closest from the older sets is Goblin Warrens, except you didn't have to have the goblins to get it going. Instead of sacrificing 2 goblins to put 3 on the board, you just got the extra soldier, and it had the added bonus of your soldiers attacking doesn't cause them to tap. So definitely a little bit better. And I think I used to run both this and the Catapult Master in my soldier deck, which I'm guessing that's where they are.
Barry did open Star Wars cards on Saturday.
Star Trek cards.
Star Trek, sorry.
Yes, I did do an opening on that day. Yeah, Trouble with Triples. Nova Cleric. 1 white for a 1/2, and you can pay 3 and tap it. Sacrifice Nova Cleric. Destroy all enchantments. Our noblest thoughts are our very first and our very last. So again, another way to clear out some enchantments. White's got no shortage of that. Typically, and in this set included. And then we've got Oblation. An instant for a 3. The owner of target non-land permanent shuffles it into his or her library, then draws 2 cards. No, there's no Picard in Trouble with Triples, but we did pull Kirk and Spock and Scotty and Chekhov and Sulu and the Enterprise. We got all the original series bridge crew except Uhura or Dr. McCoy. We got the other 5 of the original 7.
There's another guy you got that you're happy with.
And
he was like another character.
Oh yeah, I got the Romulan Centurion that I was looking for as well.
We did open.
It wasn't a bad box.
We did a video with the ETB as well.
Yeah, that was earlier this week. But we can't open stuff all the time. That's just too expensive, I'm afraid. Especially older stuff
got
like
everyone else. Well, yeah, especially when there's no Picard in the set.
Yeah. Rich people could give more, but they could never give as much. So that's a neat one. And then pacifism, classic creature control for white, not removal. Exactly. No.
Okay.
Enchant creature can't attack or block. Could still use its abilities, though, so this could be a little bit annoying. But it usually had the effect if you were using your creatures for combat, so... Even those born to battle could only lay their blades at Akroma's feet. And again, Akroma doesn't show up till a little bit later. The Pearl Spear Courier. For 3, you get a 1/2 soldier. You may choose not to untap Pearl Spear Courier during your untap step. And you can pay 3 and tap it. As long as it remains tapped, target soldier gets +2/+2 and has attack and does not cause this creature to tap. So this was sort of like a little Voltron guy that you could use to boost one of your others. Neat idea. Something that's done similar stuff before. Again, I don't remember it being that commonly played. Then we got Piety Charm. These charms were neat. I think the first time they did charms was back in Mirage. So every so often they would come out with a new set of them. And you got your little instant for 1 that typically you've got 3 different options. So destroy target, enchant creature, or target soldier gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Or attacking doesn't cause creatures you control to tap this turn. So again... depending which mode and how you're building your deck, it could be useful. But I don't think this was one of the better ones overall. Renewed Faith, instant for 3, you gain 6 life, and you can cycle it. When you cycle it, you may gain 2 life. So it's either pay 3 and gain 6, or pay 2, gain 2, and draw a card. Personally, I think the better rate on this one was usually to cycle it, which is interesting. So this would be good in a deck if you're doing a lot of, astral sliding and stuff like that.
This charge cord won't charge like that.
Yeah, that cord's been causing difficulties. Righteous Cause, enchantment for 5. Whenever a creature attacks, you gain 1 life. So, again, this is something that people might try to stack up, but they're pretty expensive for what it does. It's just a little bit of life gain. Usually, this would get the miss. Until the world unites in vengeful fury, and Phage is destroyed, I will not stay my hand. Akroma the Avenger. Weapon carrier creatures might have laid some of the groundwork for equipment, which came out not much later. Yeah, that's true. But also, for equipment, you also had things way back in Fallen Empires where it was tapped to give a boost, and you didn't have to untap it, and things like that too. So there's lots of precursors towards equipment that I think are a little bit older and more direct. But you see, I could see the connection though. Sandskin. 3 cost enchant creature. Prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to and by enchanted creature. This is basically gaseous form, but switched to white. Those who, except it's combat damage. Was gaseous form combat damage or all damage? I forget. Anyway, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. I choose to do neither. And then we're gotten to another card that we'll be glad once we're through white, because this won't happen as much. This one is Shared Triumph. Enchantment for 2. Shared Triumph comes into play. Choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1. This is reminiscent of a few cards that do similar things now. I think the most recent one was in Bloomborough. It was an artifact that was a mana rock for 3 that had this effect. You get to choose a creature type to buff as well, as I recall. Anyway, it did see some play at times. If you were looking for something like a crusade with a bit more control, so you were less likely to boost your opponents if you just kept it to your creature type instead of color. 6 for a 2/3 for Shield Mage Elder. Cleric Wizard. Tap 2 untapped clerics you control. Prevent all damage target creature would deal this turn. Or tap 2 untapped wizards you control. Prevent all damage target spell would deal this turn. Tricky to get this sucker going just because of how much you have to pay for the size. It is neat that it's got the 2 different abilities, but to get them both going, I think it would just be too much overhead, and that's why I don't remember it very well. It didn't see much use. You may fight if I deem your cause worthy.
Excuse me.
Alright, we're getting to the last page of white here, and then starting blue. Sigil of a New Dawn. Again, you can tell by the thicker sleeve. This is one that I had to pull out of a pile I was using in a deck somewhere. 4 cost for an enchantment. Whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from play, you may pay a white and a colorless. If you do, return that card to your hand. So whenever one of your creatures dies, you get the option to save it, sort of. Well, to put it back in your hand so you can replay it at least. We lay our dead to rest in a beautiful bed, in hopes that the ancestor will think it a fit cradle for the next life. Drat. I have to leave. Well, thanks for coming. If you get a chance to come back, like I said, I'm not sure I'm going to get through this whole thing tonight. Depends how quickly we go here, but I doubt it. I'll probably have to do a part 2 to finish this up, either tomorrow night or next week. I don't know what people would prefer or what my energy level is going to be like tomorrow, but we'll see.
No worries, Alias.
If I don't get through,
it'll still be up, so feel free to catch it later.
But thanks for coming. We do appreciate the feedback as it's happening for sure. Sunfire Bomb is an instant for 3. Prevent the next 4 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn, and you can cycle it for 2. When you cycle Sunfire Bomb, you may prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn. So again, instead of gaining life, you're preventing damage, which can be more useful in some cases, especially for your creatures. But yeah, you get the reduced rate, and preventing 1 damage can still have the effect of saving the creature. So this one I would say was definitely more likely to see use. Next we have True Believer.
Stopped waiting for story time with beautiful beard Papa Cat.
Yeah, well, Maybe I should dangle it in front of the camera, but then you wouldn't be able to see the card, so that's not very great either. True Believer, 2/2 for 2. Cleric, you can't be the target of spells or abilities. Very nice little effect, especially against certain decks. It's sort of a sideboardy thing too, but I do remember this one being catching a lot of people's eyes and interest. So great is his certainty that mere facts cannot shake it. Right. Next we have Unified Strike. 1 white, instant. Remove target attacking creature from the game if its power is less than or equal to the number of soldiers in play. So you got a lot of soldiers in play, this becomes very efficient removal. If not, well, you'll probably never play it. So, the tall, reedy grass of the Daru Plains rustles loudly in the winds, a perfect cover for any ambush. Then Weathered Wayfarer, this is another one that I would use in several decks. 1 white for a 1/1, pay a white and tap it to search your library for a land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Play this ability only if an opponent controls more lands than you. So this was great if your opponent went first and got ahead on lands. Then you could start using this pretty much every turn, thin out your deck, and stock up on land for when you eventually they run out of land and you can start to take a lead. Also great in decks that are looking to control the number of lands in play in various ways. But yeah, definitely this one saw some use. Try to be back as quick as possible, and I still can't wait for story time.
I read that. Yeah.
Anyway, Whip Quarter. This one saw some use in soldier decks. Oh, I think let's see, some rebel decks were still a thing at this time, weren't they? I think so. Anyway, 2/2 for 2 isn't a bad rate, and you can pay a white and tap it to tap target creature. So, like that is a standard sort of master decoy effect, which itself was a 1/2 for 2, but didn't have to be 2 white. It was a white and a colorless. So, good ability on a slightly better body, and it also has the morph to do by surprise. So yeah, this one definitely saw some use. Soldier and Rebel were both relevant types. His bolas whirl like galaxies, but it's his enemies who see the stars. Then we've got Words of Worship. Enchantment for a white and 2. The next time you would draw a card this turn, you gain 5 life instead. So yeah, again, life gain, and you're giving up card draws to do it. I don't remember this ever being popular. I'm sure there's some combo that you could make use of with this, but generally speaking, not the best of cards. The faithful don't succumb to terror, nor are they ruled by passion. They adhere to order, for order is life. And I think was there a words card for each color as well? Could be. Anyway, blue-white was really the color combination you wanted for birds, as you can see here as we now move into blue. Airborne Aid is a nice card advantage card if you're in a bird deck. A blue and 3, so 4 cost for a sorcery. Draw a card for each bird in play. If you've got a little force built up there, you can easily draw 2, 3, 4 cards with this. 2 for 4 isn't a great rate, but you know it's actually fairly standard. But as soon as you get past that to 3 or 4, this is fairly efficient for drawing that many cards. We help our Southern Order comrades as much as we can, but the Cabal's insidious influences spreads, dividing our forces and leaving new arrivals to fend for themselves. Commander Aisha. Commander Aisha that was my commander for a while for one of my EDH decks. So he's a pretty good bird soldier as well. Annex. This is a great one for manipulating the lands in play too. I like Annex with limited resources. So pay 4, you control enchanted land. You get to take one of your opponent's lands. That can be annoying. Most refugees left their ancestral homes. And behind, when they came to Onterra, a few decided to bring them along. Yeah, I would tend to play this with limited
Wouldn't that
resources.
be Ontario?
Ot. There's no N.
Oh no,
Ontario.
Ontario. Okay, sorry.
So, yeah.
Hey Darren, welcome in.
So yeah, I would play limited resources, cap the number of lands in play at 10, and then start taking my opponents where possible with cards like this. That was always fun for me. Let's go Astral Slide. Yes, Astral Slide was definitely one of the better white cards, which we just dropped up white. Unfortunately, you missed it. But thanks for joining us. Apheto Alchemist. But yeah, it's definitely good to keep in mind, because anytime you've got morph cards, cycling cards, it all interacts with, that was definitely one of the more popular strategies at the time. Apheto Alchemist is a 1/2 wizard for 2. Don't have to pay, just tap it to untap target artifact or creature. So it could be useful to mess with things. In the next set, Legions as well, there was a number of tricky wizards that could do stuff when you morphed them. They definitely continued that theme. But here's one of the first ones here. And then we've got the Apheto Grifter. 1/1 for 3. Tap 2 untapped wizards you control to tap target permanent. Excuse me for a second again. Not great.
If it wasn't so dark, I'd go to the camper and get you some of the nuts.
Yeah, that would be something. Arcanus the Omnipotent. This guy, again, at the time, this was a pretty impressive creature. Nowadays, he's not as fancy, but still. 6 for a 3/4. Big enough body to be relevant in combat if it had to, and to survive a lightning bolt. So that was, or, any 3-cost bird spell, or a 3 damage bird spell. Tap to draw 3 cards is really nice. And it's still not bad if you can find, if you bring him out when you've got a Lightning Greaves or something, so he can use haste and...
Did you do that?
A while ago, yeah.
Okay.
And the ability to pay 4 to return it to its owner's hand helps keep him alive in certain situations. So, yeah. It's certainly not irrelevant, I would say, but definitely not as powerful as it was when it was released. This was, again, thought to be another example of power creep back in the day, and I knew more people who played this than the White Jedith one, that's for sure. Next we've got Artificial Evolution. Instant for 1. Change the text of target spell or permanent by replacing all instances of one creature type with another. The new creature type can't be legend or wall, because they had special rules that were triggered by that. Legend was a creature type, not a subtype or whatever it is now, or super type. And wall meant it couldn't attack. This effect doesn't end at end of turn, so you could swoop in and change the effects on things, which was very nice. But again, very situational. Sort of the equivalent of what Magical Hack and Sleight of Mind used to be back in the day. Ascending Aven. 3/2 for 4. Flying. Ascending Aven may block only creatures with flying. And morph. So it got a little bit bigger when it morphed, and could surprise you, but this one was around the same size. It is another bird soldier, so if you're playing birds, blue-white was a good combination again. As a common, it's a flyer. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Aven Fate Shaper. 7 for a 4/5 flying. When Aven Fate Shaper comes into play, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put them back in any order. And you can pay 5 to look at the top 4 cards of your library and then put them back in any order. So you can do some tricks with that for sure. But again, 7 to play and 5 to use. It does get, It's tough. Even back then, it was tough. Things that cost 7. This can set up some nice stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it's pretty pricey. You're built like a 1x1 Lego brick. Square can be okay. Backslide. 2 for a instant. Turn target creature with more face down, and you can cycle it for a blue to get rid of it. Yeah. Again, within the format here, if you were drafting this, this might be something that would be worthwhile picking. But you really had to be in a format with a lot of morph being around to make this worthwhile, and even then it wasn't always. So I don't think this one saw much play. It was a cheap cycle, though. Blatant Thievery, 7 cost sorcery. For each opponent, gain control of target permanent that player controls. This one can be fun in multiplayer and can sure make you a lot of friends at the table, I'll tell you. But you can also have some fun with it. I'll leave subtlety to the rich. Yeah, of course. I like the art on it, at least. Yeah, the Minotaurs. I like Minotaurs. This one's the art's not bad, but it's definitely a bird stealing stuff. Callous Oppressor. 3 for a 1/2 Cephalid. You didn't see a whole lot of cephalids, but there were a few around here.
The art on it, at least.
Yeah, that was this one over here, the backslide.
Oh, okay.
At least I presume so. You may choose not to untap Cephalid, or Callous Oppressor, I should say, during your untap step, as long as it, when it comes into play, an opponent chooses a creature type, and tap it to gain control of a creature that isn't of the chosen type, as long as Callous Oppressor remains tapped. So, they can grant immunity to one of their creature types if they're playing tribal, but if they're not, then it's a pretty good little one for snagging things, just like, the old sea singers or old man of the seas or things. There's a long history of smallish blue creatures that can do that sort of thing.
What is that?
It's an ornament for Lucas.
Where are we? Played a lot of Magic, at least. Yourself? I have, but it's been a while since I played regularly. Next, we got Chain of Vapor. 1 blue. So this one's a little cheaper than some of the chain cards. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then that permanent's controller may sacrifice a land. If the player does, he or she may copy the spell and may choose a new target for the copy. So this can bounce around and bounce a bunch of stuff too, depending on how you play it. I used to use this as a good alternative for bouncing my stasis in my stasis decks, because it was a little cheaper than Boomerang, and then it gave me the option if I wanted to play it again. Next, we've got...
You hear somebody's cat outside, or maybe a couple cats.
Yeah. Choking Tethers. This one I remember would turn up from time to time. 4 for an instant. Tap up to 4 target creatures. So you can lock down most of your opponent's blockers and then swing. Or cycle it for a blue and a colorless to draw a card. And when you cycle it, you may tap target creature. So you can tap 1 as well as drawing a card for 2. And get your cycling effect from your astral slide or whatever. So, yeah, this one was definitely turned up quite a bit. And then we've got a good old reprint. Clone had been out of circulation for a while. I think at this time, this was an exciting reprint because the last time Clone had been out was, in fact, in Revised. Now, they didn't get the same artist to come back, but the art is definitely inspired by the original art for Clone. You got the same sort of beach, the same soldiers with the same costumes, except instead of just looking at each other with their swords in their belts, they still have the swords, but now they're facing off with the crossbows. So that's kind of fun. As clone comes into play, you may choose a creature in play. If you do, clone comes into play as a copy of that creature. And again, if you're cloning a morphed creature that you don't know what it is, that could be create an interesting dynamic there. But usually you could find something that's worth more than your 4 to copy in the late game. Complicate. 3 for an instant. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. Or you could cycle it for 3 to draw a card, and when you cycle it, you may counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. So they still have to keep mana untapped. If they tapped out, you could still counter the spell and draw a card. I remember this one did see some play for sure. And again, in decks that liked to cycle most of the time, but not even exclusively. This one could be annoying. Not as efficient in its regular mode as Mana Leak, but that cycling option really does give it some strength. Even if you do have to pay 3 either way. Crafty Path Mage. 1/1 for 3. Tap it. Target creature with power 2 or less is unblockable this turn. So this was your classic Dwarven Warrior, except they made it a wizard and moved it to blue. They did a lot of cards shifting around like that for this set. The most valuable commodity in the pits is a way out. And here's the blue crown, Crown of Ascension. Enchanted creature has flying, or you can sacrifice Crown of Ascension. Enchanted creature and other creatures that share a creature type with it gain flying until end of turn. Wisdom, clear my eyes. Again, if you give your whole team flying all of a sudden, you can definitely swing in for some damage, but this one was, I think, a little bit less useful overall because it can't save creatures like the white one can, and even the white one can set up a big swing as well. So Discombobulate. I like this title. I used to wonder about recombobulating things after they've been discombobulated, but that's, just linguistic musings on my part. So 4 cost for an instant, counter target spell. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. Counter spell for 4, yeah, it's a bit much. Being able to rearrange your top decks is a neat bonus, but usually people would opt for the more efficient counterspell option, including just drawing a card with things like Complicate. So I said pick his brains, not tear off his head, Riptide Project researcher. Discombobulate Classic, yeah. The Riptide Project, that's speaking again of slivers, which I mentioned previously. That's coming up big time in the next set here, was wave number 2 of the sliver invasion. I do rather like that creature type from time to time, and the early waves I think were the most interesting. I'll probably do a chat about that at some time separately. There's a few allusions to them in this set, but not too much. They kept it pretty low down until they were ready to unleash them. Dispersing Orb, 5 for an enchantment. Pay 4 and sacrifice a permanent. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Like the seas, the aether is fickle and ever-changing. If we can control one, we can master other people. The Riptide Project Director. And then we've got Disruptive Pit Mage. 3 for a 1/1. Tap it to counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. So again, you have to be careful in this block about tapping out to play your stuff. And you could morph it for a single blue. So, again, for its cost, you could just play it as a 2/2 and then hold up some mana to surprise someone in the right circumstance. Unfortunately, if you did attack with it as a 2/2, it would still be tapped when you morphed it. So you couldn't use the ability if it was tapped. But if you're holding it back as a blocker for some reason, and there were many reasons, you could. Next we got Essence Fracture. This looks painful. 5 for a sorcery. Return 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. And you could cycle it for 3 to draw a card. Bouncing 2 things at once can be a pain. I do think this is a little overcosted though. But again, you got the cycling option. It's not a horrible card. It's just not a great card. Shaping Reality is simple. Simply a matter of knowing where to apply pressure. And Fleeting Aven. 2/2 for 3 flying bird wizard. Whenever a player cycles a card, return Fleeting Aven to its owner's hand. So yeah, this had a habit of disappearing on you. Now that could be useful, because you could use it if your opponent doesn't have cycling. Which, in this set, if you were doing draft or something, yeah, everyone had cycling pretty well. But building your own constructed deck, that wasn't a given. And so you would have more control over that ability. And next we're on to Future Sight. Again, this is a card which I used to use fairly regularly. It's got a rather nice effect. Enchantment for 5, a little heavy on the blue, but play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library as though it were in your hand. So you're giving up a little bit of information for sure, but the ability to have that extra card available to play sure is handy. Basically, whenever a land pops up there, you can play it a turn sooner, and that helps you dig a little deeper. You used to be able to put damage on the stack and then cycle also. Yeah, that's true. So that's another way you could abuse it with the Aven. I don't believe it works that way anymore, but at the time, that sounds about what I remember. Ghost Helm Courier. A blue and 2 for a 2/1 wizard. You may choose not to untap Ghost Helm Courier during your untap step. Pay 3 and tap it. As long as it remains tapped, target wizard gets +2/+2 and can't be the target of spells or abilities. That good old Shroud effect, which they don't seem to use as much anymore. I think they've changed it so that now you have to pay something to be able to target it, more than they have things that can just not be targeted. They put a condition on it, so you got to do something to target things now. I liked the old way better. Graxiplon Beast for 6. 3/4. Graxiplon is unblockable unless defending player controls 3 or more creatures that share a creature type. So you gotta have a crew that can work together to catch this thing. Attempts to revive this ancient species have not been entirely successful, but results indicate potential for future development. Riptide Project Researcher. And again, beasts were a big thing for green in this set, so you get a little bit of overlap there, in case you're playing both colors. Image Crafter. 1/1 for 1. Choose a creature type other than legend or wall. Again, we've talked about the reasons for that. Target creature's type becomes that type until end of turn. So again, you could do a few little tricks with this. It was your basic 1/1 for 1. Not a huge deal, but a useful little card. Information Dealer. 1/1 for 2. Tap it to look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of wizards in play. Then put them back in any order. So again, being able to dig through your deck or set up your top card. It wasn't as abusable at the time as it has become since. But certainly there are a lot of ways to abuse this sort of effect now, whether it's Miracle or whether it's what's some of the other ones? There are things which look at the casting cost of the top card of your deck to do damage and things like that, I believe. Yeah, there's lots of ways you could abuse this type of effect now. But still, this one takes some setup because you need a bunch of wizards in play. Next, we've got Ixidor, the Reality Sculptor. This was one of the big players in the story of this set. So face down creatures get +1/+1, and you can pay 3 to turn target face down creature face up. So he was real big into being able to buff and control morph creatures. 3/4 for 5 isn't wonderful on his own, though. Still, he's a wizard. And, yeah, he does work nicely with a lot of them. Extor's Will. Remember this being used a little bit more commonly. Counter target spell, unless its controller pays 2 for each wizard in play. If you're playing a wizard deck, it's still not the best counter spell. Usually you can find a lot of things that counter things for 2, but...
You know who that face looks like?
No.
Catherine O'Hara. The actress that plays the mom. Not that close if you look a little further back. That plays the mom on Home Alone.
Maybe. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it that much.
I see it. Like when she's yelling.
Yeah,
When she's yelling,
with
Kevin!
Morph, but
Sorry.
yeah, I'm gonna. That's a stretch for me, but I can see some similarities in the eyes, but beyond that, not a whole
In
lot.
the mouth when she's yelling Kevin and she's got lips, so.
Oh man.
Okay, it's probably just me. But yeah.
All right.
I'm tired.
Mage's Guile. Me too. So this, for 2 instant, target creature cannot be the target of spells or abilities until end of turn. And you can cycle it for a blue if you don't need it. But if your opponent's got a lot of targeted removal, this can certainly save one of your creatures. And if not, hey, it's an extra cycling trigger. Metal. This is a reprint, I believe. From, where was this originally? Mirage? Something like that. A blue and a colorless instant. If target spell has only one target, and that target is a creature, change that spell's target to another creature. So this was a good old deflection effect, but just for creatures. Strength may not win the fight, but style wins the crowd. Next we have the Mistform Dreamer. 2/1 flying for 3. Pay 1. Mistform's Dreamer becomes the creature type of your choice until end of turn. So, if your opponent's got things that buff soldiers, oh, guess what? I'll take advantage of that. You know, there's lots of little tricks like that you can pull.
Oh, shoot.
Though, one of these illusions, they came out in years later with, like, illusion, what was it? A blue illusionary creature of Lord. And I had fun going through some of these old illusions to pull out for that sort of a deck, with the illusionary bears and dragons and things. Here we have the Mistform Mask. 2 cost, enchant creature, and you can pay 1 enchanted creature's type becomes the creature type of your choice until end of turn. Yeah. Good for some shenanigans, I suppose, but usually not worth it unless you're building something very specific. I don't remember this card being used. Trust the 5th myth of reality. Every truth holds the seed of betrayal.
Yeah, I'm right here.
We have changelings at the moment. Yeah,
that.
changeling has really become a thing over the years. The set following this, Legions, I believe, had Mistform Ultimus, which had every creature type, which was basically changeling, but before that existed. Oh, lovely.
It's only this, like, 3rd weekend, and he needs more sketchbooks.
How many did we send? I thought we only sent the one.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We usually send a couple.
So I think we have one in our storage unit at the end of our bed there.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
It's
Anyway.
4:24 a.m. and struggling to sleep. Oh, I hear ya.
Yeah. I need to get to bed in the not too distant future. I don't think I'm going to get through the whole set in this setting. We'll have to do a part 2, I think. Mistform Mutant. 6 for a 3/4. Illusionary Mutant. Pay 2. Choose a creature type other than Legend or Wall. Target creature's type becomes that type until end of turn. Familiarity, the first myth of reality. What you know the best, you observe the least.
He likes the artist and the art on that card.
Yeah, John Avon is a very well-known artist. I think for basic lands, one of the things he's famous for. There are certain lands he's done, but he's definitely one of the ones that people appreciate. Mistform Shrieker. 3/3 flying for 5. And again, you can pay 1 to have his creature type become the creature type of your choice until end of turn, or morph for 5.
Nice. Sorry, I missed that comment.
Then we've got Mistform Sky Reaver for 7, awfully expensive. At the time, a 6/6 flyer, yeah, you would probably expect to spend 7 on.
Is that supposed to be a cloud that looks like a dragon?
It's an illusion.
Ooh.
So, what shape it is can change depending on what you need. But, yeah, big 6/6 flying, and again, you can change your creature type around. Conviction, the third myth of reality. Only those who seek the truth can be deceived. Of course, if you don't acknowledge that there is truth, you've got other problems, but that's another whole kettle of fish. Mistform Stalker. Yeah, just in case you're unclear about that, reality does exist.
Please let me know when you're able to post my winnings from your win. Yeah, I'm gonna try and get it. I'm gonna try and get it out. Get the slabs out on Friday.
So the Stalker is a 1/1 for 2 illusion, and again, you can change the type around. Pay 4. Mistform Stalker gets +2/+2 and gains flying until end of turn. Then you've got the Mistform Wall. 1/4 illusion wall for 3, and its type becomes the creature type of your choice until end of turn. So, and I believe that trumps its previous types, so you might be able to get rid of the wall that way. I think you can with this one. Fellowship, the fourth myth of reality. As the tides of war shift, so do loyalties. And we've got the Nameless one, Wizard Avatar for 4. Nameless one's power and toughness are each equal to the number of wizards in play, and it's got morph. This, again, being able to morph into a big creature is nice, but this was one of the less exciting, in my opinion. Star for 4s with power and toughness equal to the number of whatever the creature type was. I don't remember this one seeing as much play as some of the others. And here's our missing blue card. Oh, shoot. This thing, I wish it wouldn't go to sleep on me so much. Oh, shoot. Come here. Where is he? So this was Peer Pressure.
Did you ever have that one, or did you just
I don't remember it, to be honest. 4. Sorcery. Choose a creature type. If you control more creatures of that type than any other player, you gain control of all the creatures of that type. So, if you're playing Slivers, and your opponent is also playing Slivers, but you have more in play, you can steal all their Slivers. Yeah, it's very, very niche. But it exists, and it can steal you a bunch of creatures in the very specific type of situation.
If you want it for
you just need to make sure you've got more. Well, we'll see. I'm not overly anxious at this point, but Psychic Trance. 4 for an instant. Until end of turn, wizards you control gain tap it to counter target spell. If you got a bunch of wizards sitting around and you really want to stop them from getting the spells through, this could be useful. But again, paying 4 in response to something to be able to counter it, and then have the option maybe to counter other things later down the road. Yeah, it's going to be awfully situational when you get enough value for this over just sort of a regular counterspell. The Riptide Project was perhaps the only school devoted to preventing the spread of knowledge. Now this guy. This one I remember seeing a bunch
That
of
art
play.
looks cool.
Yep. Quicksilver Dragon. So Quicksilver is an old name for Mercury, by the way. So it's a liquid metallic dragon. Very fun. 6 for a 5/5 flying. So, back in the day, your 6 for your big flyer for blue would get you a Mahamati Djinn, which was a 5/6 flying. This has got 1 less toughness. But in exchange, you can pay a blue target spell that has only 1 target, and that is targeting Quicksilver Dragon. Change that spell's target to another target creature. Usually, that's just a preventative measure. They know you can do it, and so they won't bother to try to target it. But it's also got the morph. So if you wanted to bring it out a little early, because you needed a 3-drop, and then morph it a turn sooner than you'd be able to cast it, you might be able to surprise somebody if it dragged on and you had the extra mana around. But usually that didn't happen in my experience. Usually this was just a 5/5 flying beat stick with a little bit of way to protect itself for 6. And it was good enough at that time, at that rate. Now it's probably horribly, I'm sure there's a lot of better things that are out there now. Next we've got Read the Runes. A blue and X. Draw X cards. For each card drawn this way, discard a card from your hand unless you sacrifice a permanent. So, it can let you dig for stuff, but you better hope you got some permanents around to sacrifice if you want to actually keep things. The world is a puzzle, and the mind is its key. Not very good, to be honest. Reminisce. 3 for a sorcery. Target player shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library. So this is the old Felden's Cane effect, except as a sorcery for 3. Useful in certain circumstances, but generally speaking, not something most people wanted to play. Leave the door to the past even slightly ajar, and it could be blown off its hinges. Next we've got Riptide Biologist. Protection from beasts. 1/2 for 2, and it can morph for 3. I gave it 2 choices: life in the lab or death in the hunt. Again, sort of sideboardy. Riptide Chronologist. 5 for a 1/3 wizard. You can pay a blue, sacrifice Riptide Chronologist, untap all creatures of the type of your choice. Again, that can be a pretty neat swing, but again, they can see it coming, and 5 for a 1/3 is a pretty lousy cost for a creature that size, even if it has the ability to sacrifice it for something like that, in my opinion. I mean, you can do it right away when it comes into play, so you could just drop this, pay 6, 5 to cast it, 1 to sacrifice it, and untap all your stuff. But that's still not going to be worth it most of the time. Maybe in an elf deck that had some blue, you could turn a profit on that, because the elves can generate a lot of mana starting in Urza's Saga with the Priest of Titania, but this block gave the elf decks a lot more tools as it went on as well. The wizards consult the Riptide Project about how to further his research. He wasn't prepared for what they told him. And then Riptide Entrancer. 3 for a 1/1. When Riptide Entrancer deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, gain control of target creature that player controls. And again, it can morph for 2. So you can do this to surprise somebody and steal their stuff. It's not bad, but again, there's a lot of creatures that do similar things. Next we have Riptide Shapeshifter. 3/3 for 5. Pay 4, sacrifice Riptide Shapeshifter. Choose a creature type. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card of that type. Put that card into play and shuffle the rest into your library. This is one there you had to set yourself up pretty well. You put one big beast in your deck or something like that to go find. But there was ways you could trick something big out with it in theory. So, yeah. I think I remember this being used occasionally, but usually it just was too much headache and setup for what it did. There was easier ways to get the same or similar effect. Rummaging Wizard. 4 for 2/2. Pay 3. Look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. So again, if you've got a lot of mana, you can dig. I've got everything you'd ever need right here. Just give me some time to find it. Sage Aven, Bird Wizard. 1/3 for 4, flying. When it comes into play, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can put them back in any order. So again, if you're playing on the theme. Screaming Seahawk, 5 for a 2/2, flying. When it comes into play, search your library for a card named Screeching Seahawk. Reveal it and put it into your hand. If you do so, shuffle your library. So again, precursor to Squadron Hawks, I believe, or something quite similar. But just the heavy cost meant this really was slowing you down if you're paying 5 for a 2/2 flying, even if it's getting you the ability to fish up another one for next turn. That's not a great rate. It is interesting, though, at the time. But that's something they refined later on. Sea's Claim. 1 blue, enchant land. Enchanted land is an island. Very handy. Yes, I didn't get them fully put away. Enchanted land is an island. If you're playing a Merfolk deck or something like that likes Island Walk, very handy. 1 enchantment, cheaper than Phantasmal Terrain. Certainly useful in that case. Or if you got, sea serpents and stuff like that require lands to cast. Slipstream Eel. 7 again. Ugh. Anything that costs 7, the game would most often be over before you could play it, unless you really are playing, a certain amount of ramp and stuff like that. Or other mana acceleration. Slipstream Eel can't attack unless defending player controls an island. So there's again an example of something you'd want that for. And you can cycle it for 2 to draw a card if you're stuck in a situation where it's not going to be able to attack anyway. 6/6 Island Home, or what they used to call. Well, Island Home would die if you didn't have an island, so this isn't quite that bad. It's a fine way to travel if you don't mind the smell. Spy Network. 1 blue, instant. Look at target player's hand. If the top card of that player's library, look at the target player's hand and the top card of that player's library, and any face-down creatures he or she controls. Look at the top 4 cards of your library and then put them back in any order. So this is just an information-seeking tool. That type of effect wasn't as important or wasn't seen as being that useful at the time. I've heard that recently it's become much more popular since Gitaxian Probe, I believe, really started to get people's attention onto it, which of course you could do for free if you had some life points to spend. But yeah, it's been around back since, not to this extent, but you had Urza's glasses and stuff like that you could look at people's hand with anyway. Still, this does get you a little bit more. It helps you dig through your deck a little bit to find what you need. Standardize. 2 blue, instant. Choose a creature type other than Legend and Wall. Each creature's type becomes that type until end of turn. At that point, the wizard's argument got a lot uglier. And then we've got the Supreme Inquisitor. This is fun. 5 for a 1/3 Wizard Lord. Tap 5 untapped wizards you control. Search target player's library for up to 5 cards and remove them from the game. Then that player shuffles his or her library. So, oh look, I'm going to remove your key combo pieces, or, key cards you're going to need to ramp to your next level. It does take quite a bit of setup, because you need to have 5 untapped wizards to start to use it, but that can have a significant event for sure. Next we've got Trade Secrets. For 3 sorcery, target opponent draws 2 cards. Then you draw up to 4 cards. That opponent may repeat this process as many times as he or she chooses. So this can be a fun way, if you've got a buddy in a multiplayer game, to let you both fill up your hands to a very significant extent. Or, if you're playing in a more friendly environment, just to pass around the love around the table and let everybody fill up their hands. That can work too. Here's the blue charm, Trickery Charm. For 1 blue instant, choose one. Target creature gains flying until end of turn, or target creature's type becomes the creature type of your choice until end of turn. Or look at the top 4 cards of your library and then put them back in any order. This one I remember being quite popular. Void Mage Prodigy. 2 blue for a 2/1 wizard. It can morph for 1 blue. So you can swap it in as a surprise if you need the effect and want it to be a surprise. And you can pay 2 blue and sacrifice a wizard to counter target spell. If you've got a bunch of wizards around because you're playing a wizard deck, and any of them can be sacrificed for 2 blue to counter your spell, that can be really annoying on your opponent if they're trying to get a certain spell off to swing things. And you can just say no. This guy was pretty good. Wheel and Deal. Now this, I'm surprised, hasn't taken off lately, with all the nasty shield reds and orcish bowmasters and things out there that can deal with card drawing on your opponent's part. 4 to play, instant. Any number of target opponents each discards his or her hand and draws 7 cards. So you're forcing your opponents to each draw 7, and each of those extra card draws could be a trigger for your shield red or your orcish bowmaster, and then you get to draw a card yourself. So this could be pretty nasty today. Back then, it wasn't so hot, but I think now this has really got some potential. At least in a deck that's set up to make use of that sort of thing. Words of Wind. Enchantment for 3. The next time you would draw a card this turn, each player returns a permanent he or she controls to its owner's hand instead. So again, this is the blue words card. And again, you're giving up a card draw in order to fill your opponent's hand, this time by bouncing things. I don't know. It certainly can be useful, but there is a significant downside there, generally speaking. I'm sure there's a way to abuse it, but it probably takes more work than it's worth, to be honest. Be logical in all things. Do not allow instinct or passion to cloud your mind. Next we've got black. We're starting into black. The Accursed Centaur, zombies. Centaurs weren't a big theme in this set, but zombies were. You get a 2/2 for 1, and when a cursed zombie comes into play, sacrifice a creature. So that's definitely a downside. I don't remember this being too popular on that front, because it looks like you want to drop it on the first turn, but that doesn't really work. The Cabal mock the natural order, unless you just need a creature in your graveyard, maybe. For its minions, death is just a pause between duties. Next, we've got the Enurid Muck Diver. 6 to play for a 4/3 Swamp Walk. Yeah, again, this is just a big removal target, basically. Apheto swamps are alive with the dead. Zombie beast. So again, that overlapping creature types from different colors for building different color combination decks. This set was good at that. We got 4 for a sorcery, Apheto dredging. Return up to 3 target creature cards of the creature type of your choice from your graveyard to your hand. Phage became both an executioner and savior, helping others to the same rebirth she had found. Phage has got a rather tragic and difficult story. Again, Jessica was the sister of Kamal, and they were both, I don't know, I remember them being liked, I remember them being played in their red incarnations, and then things went a little haywire as time went on with them, unfortunately. Here we have the Apheto Vulture, 6, again pretty pricey, for a 3/2 flyer. And when it's put into a graveyard from play, you may put target zombie card from your graveyard on top of your library. It does replace itself eventually, but yeah, that's expensive. So let's put that back in here. Blackmail. I remember this one being used quite regularly. Sort of a duress type effect, as I recall. 1 black, sorcery. Target player reveals 3 cards from his or her hand, and you choose one of them. That player discards that card. So if they've got 3 or fewer cards, you get to pick anything they've got and make them discard it. Otherwise, they get to save their important stuff, but it's not limited like duress or ostracize or other things where you have to pick a creature or a non-creature spell. This was just whatever they've got, but they get to pick to protect things if they've got more than 3. Next, even the most virtuous person is only one secret away from being owned by the Cabal. Bone Knitter. Zombie Cleric. There's a freakish combination. 1/1 for 2. Pay 2, regenerate target zombie. And you can morph it for 3. That can certainly be annoying if you've got a zombie deck, and all of a sudden you can pay 2 to regenerate any of them. Cabal Archon. I remember I used to use these just on their own, even outside of a cleric deck. 2/2 for 3, again, pretty standard at the time if you had some other way to give buffs to cleric. But paying 1 black and sacrificing a cleric, including itself, could. Target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. If your opponent's getting low on life, these become pretty dangerous. I always really liked Blackmail as a player who loves hand destruction generally. Yeah, Blackmail was pretty good. Probably technically not the best, but certainly a playable card. Cabal Executioner, 2/2 for 4. Whenever Cabal Executioner deals combat damage to a player, that player sacrifices a creature, and you can morph it for 5. So again, this is one of the ones that likes to sneak in without you knowing what it is, and then you get some effect, because it costs more to morph than it does to just play the thing. But it's the surprise factor that you're trying to get some real value out of with this one. A little awkward. It can work, but yeah, it's just, I think, a bit too pricey from what I would want to see. Cabal Slaver. 3 cost for a 2/1 cleric. Whenever a goblin deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card from his or her hand. So again, this is encouraging you to mix your creature types. Alias, welcome back. In its natural habitat, the goblin is stupid, yet devious. Now it's stupid, devious, and powerful. And then we've got Chain of Smog, Black's Chain Spell, not smell, excuse my stuffy nose. It's affecting my pronunciation. We got 2, Sorcery. Target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. That player may copy this spell and choose a new target for that copy. So this will bounce around and make people shrink their hands in a hurry in a multiplayer format, unless someone's got a lot of restraint and doesn't feel like, either revenge or someone else they're worried about getting pared down as well. Next, we've got Cover of Darkness. Cover of Darkness comes into play. Choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type have fear. Again, if your opponent isn't running a lot of black or artifact creatures, this could be quite troublesome. But it is sort of sideboardy in that sense. Yeah, discard, discard, and discard again. Yep. Chain of Smog will do that. Crown of Suspicion. Enchanted creature gets +2 attack, -1. And sacrifice Crown of Suspicion. Enchanted creature and other creatures that share a creature type with it get +2 or +2 -1 until end of turn.
Hey, Void.
Now this one was tougher to use. You could technically throw this on one of your opponent's creatures if your opponent had a 2 toughness elf or goblin or something, and then use its ability to kill off a bunch of their creatures. But, very situational. Because it did the buffing the attack and shrinking the toughness thing, it was tricky to get good use out of. If you had bigger creatures like zombies, you might get some use out of it. Voiding the way it should. High flyer. Thanks for jumping in, Void. You missed the just missed Void Mage Prodigy over here. There's your namesake, I suppose. Pretty solid card. Next we've got Cruel Revival. So 5 cost. Destroy target non-zombie creature. It can't be regenerated. Return up to 1 target zombie card to your hand. So get rid of a creature and go get a creature. Of course, you have to still cast it, but you could get some value out of this, but it's 5 and it's, somewhat conditional, so I don't think this saw a lot of play as I recall. Oh, we still haven't done the back of this sheet. Next we have a death match. So here, 4 to cost enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play, that creature's controller may have target creature of his or her choice get -3/-3 until end of turn. So you can shrink down a creature or kill small creatures for that turn if you're whenever you play a creature. That can be pretty nasty if you've got them to keep churning out. Certainly keep the population on the board down. The Cabal breeds many things for the pit fights, but it never breeds compassion. And there's good old Phage in the picture there again. We got Death Pulse for 4. Target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. And this is one of those goody little cycling bonus cards where you can cycle it for 3 to draw a card and have a creature get -1 until end of turn. So this one again, I recall seeing some play. Neat little bonus mode there. You could kill something big if you had to, or you could strategically shrink off something that's smaller or already injured and draw a card. And get a cycling trigger. Deathmatch. I used that card so much just because of the flavor. Yeah, it's fun in that way, but it can get tiresome if you're pulling it on your playgroup too often. Dirge of the Dead. 3-cost sorcery. All creatures gain fear until end of turn, and you can cycle it. Whenever you cycle Dirge of the Dead, you may have target creature gain fear until end of turn. So again, basically making creatures unblockable. But you can do it for just one and draw a card instead for cheaper, which is a nice option. Gotta put this down again for a second. I really need to do something about this. Disciple of Malice. Protection from white, and you can cycle it for 2 for a 1/2 for 2. Basically, again, they're just color shifting Repentance, Blacksmith, and giving it cycling. So in this case, pro white, black card. It's a cleric, so it plays into that theme nicely. It's not too exciting, and it certainly can be useful in the right matchup. Having a protection creature against your opponent's color is certainly a strong option, but not as strong if they're playing multiple colors. That's for sure. This guy backing into a spot here. Yeah, sometimes there can be annoying drivers around, no question. Doomed Necromancer, another flavorful card.
Frank.
Cleric Mercenary, so another mercenary card. There's still a few of them. 2/2 for 3, and you can pay a black, tap, and sacrifice Doomed Necromancer. Return target creature card from your graveyard to play. So again, you could use this to trick out something rather big and brutish quite easily.
Wow, my iPad is
My sacrifice shall not be forgotten. Now toss it. Sorry, his sacrifice shall not be forgotten. Now toss his body over there with the others. Yeah, that's Phage, all right.
my chat stopped working.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got to learn sometime, I suppose. My playgroup calls me a table smasher. They don't want to play with me unless I use precons or give them handicaps. Yeah, I tend to like to pull out rather nasty combos and tricks at times too.
And why do you
It all depends on what your playgroup expects to an
and
extent.
why do you think I stopped wanting to play with you?
Well, there's that, I suppose. Ebon Blade Reaper. 3 for a 1/1. When it attacks, you lose half your life, rounded up. Whenever Ebon Blade Reaper deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half his or her life, rounded up. And you can morph it for 5. So again, the idea here is you can get around that first line if you leave it morphed when you do your attack, and then morph it when you just before you deal damage to get the second effect without having to have paid half your life. So that does make it a little bit better in that sense, but it is still expensive. Still, it can swing a lot of life if you get it through. Just trying to get through the year, Void. How about you? Yeah, well, it has been a little bit of an awkward year, I'll give you that. Pretty much wherever you are. Endemic Plague. Well, yeah, let's not talk too much about that either. There's 4. As an additional cost to play Endemic Plague, sacrifice a creature. Destroy all creatures that share a creature type with the sacrificed creature. They can't regenerate. So, definitely handy if your opponent's playing a tribal deck of some sort, be it soldiers or slivers or whatever, merfolk, goblins. Good way to clear the board of those pesky tribal themes. Entrails Feaster. Nasty little zombie cat for 1 black, 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may remove a creature card in a graveyard from the game. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Entrails Feaster. If you don't,
That's a creepy looking one.
tap Entrails Feaster. It is. So it gets bigger as long as you keep feeding it. But if you don't feed it, it taps and you can't use it. Fade from memory. So 1 black, instant, remove target card in a graveyard from the game. Or you can pay a black to cycle it and draw a card. It doesn't really do a lot, but it is a cheap cycling trigger. And if your opponent's trying to reanimate a big bruiser they slipped into their graveyard, it could trip them up. Proper burial is a luxury Autarians can no longer afford. Alright. I'm going to need this soon. Fallen Cleric. 5 for a 4/2 protection from clerics. And it's a zombie cleric. You can morph it for 5. It's pretty basic, but yeah, unless you're in that particular cleric matchup, 5 for a 4/2, even with morph, isn't that great, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, I think I know why. Another reason why we might not have so many viewers tonight is that I didn't get this up last night.
Okay, why am I missing this? This is an uncommon. I should... Oh, no, wait, this is a rare. Oops, anyway. So this next one I'm missing here... Oh, come on. I'm just juggling things. This was False Cure. So 2 black, instant. Until end of turn, whenever a player gains life, that player loses 2 life for each 1 life he or she gained. So it's a very counter life-gaining type strategy. I suppose there's a way to let your opponent make your opponent gain a lot of life and force this. But I'm not thinking of it off the top of my head. There's probably a combo you can do with this. I do unto others as others have done to me, says Phage. Yeah, just gonna goth phase. Well, it's a cursed phase more than a goth phase, I would say, but yeah. Poor Jessica. She definitely became quite the force to be reckoned with, though. Feeding Frenzy. An instant for 3. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of zombies in play. So again, removal that gets better the more of your tribe you've got around. It wasn't as much a strategy as a dim instinct to drown their prey. Festering Goblin. I remember this one seeing some play. If you ran a goblin deck and liked to splash a little black, or if you just wanted something a little different with your zombies for a turn 1. When Festering Goblin is put into a graveyard from play, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So if it already dealt it a damage, you could kill something with toughness 2. In life, it was a fetid, disease-ridden thing. In death, not much changed. Where are we? It's a blessed phase. I had a deck plan for False Cure. There was a group of green cards at one point that you could give your opponent life instead of paying their mana cost. Yeah, there were, weren't there? Yeah, I could see that kind of working. That could be... It's still a little bit to set up, but yeah, that would be rather annoying, wouldn't it? I just want my... Yeah, that's always nice when medications do what they're supposed to. Fright Shrouded Courier. 3 for a 2/1. You may choose not to untap Fright Shrouded Courier during your untap step. Tap it and pay 3. As long as Fright Shrouded Courier remains tapped, target zombie gets +2/+2 and has fear. It can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures.
It's just after 10, so I don't know which one you want to go to.
Yeah, I should probably... I'll wrap up black, and then I'm going to have to call it quits, and we'll do a part 2. When?
Well,
I don't know.
if you want to do it another
We'll see how I'm feeling tomorrow, but more than likely we'll
Next
save it for
Monday?
next Monday, and I'll finish up Onslaught then.
If I told you that I love you, would that help make you feel better? Pure homey love. That's for Tank.
Yeah, we're always glad to see you, Tank, and hope you do feel better.
All. Thanks for coming out and chatting with us. We enjoy you.
So we got the Gangrenous Goliath, a zombie giant, 4/4 for 5. Tap 3 untapped clerics you control, which is interesting because it's a zombie and a giant, and it relies on clerics. So we're now on 3 different creature types. Return Gangrenous Goliath from your graveyard to your hand. So you can bring it back, but a 4/4 for 5 is not in itself.
Oh, no worries, Tank.
The best rate you can come up with.
We're happy you're here.
No. Gluttonous Zombie. This is a pretty revolting card. And you basically just get your 3/3 zombie with fear for 5. Now, the classic Zombie Master gave fear, as I recall, or did it? It was Swamp Walk and something, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
Was it Swamp Walk? Anyway.
But
it cannot be. Or no, it was one of the newer ones. I think that came out in Plane Shift or something. That a zombie lord that gave fear. Greed and gluttony led him to death. Now they are his greatest assets. That's me on a Friday. Well, I certainly hope not. Grave Spawn's Sovereign. So here's our zombie lord for... Now, lords, I tend to think of like Lord of Atlantis, a creature that buffs all your creatures of that type. But lords in this set are specific. They all have the tap 5 of that thing. So here you're paying 6 for a 3/3, and you can tap 5 untapped zombies you control to put target creature card from a graveyard into play under your control. So that can help build your forces in a hurry, that's for sure. Cabal never expected its creations to create servants of their own. And then we've got the Grinning Demon. So this guy is, you can tell with the horns and the general theme of the card, he was meant to be sort of a extra painful, extra big version of Jazam the Djinn. Except he's a demon, not a djinn, but his casting cost is the same. 4 with 2 black, and instead of a 5/5 that deals 1 damage to you during your upkeeps, you get a 6/6 that at the beginning of your upkeep deals 2, you lose 2 life. And you can use Morph to avoid that. On the turn you can't attack with it when you bring it into play. So you can pay 3, bring it out, and then when you attack with it, swing in, Morph, get the first hit in, and then it starts damaging you after you get in that first hit. In theory, that's about the idea of it. It generated a little bit of interest when it first came out, but there's certainly a lot better cards out there now. It's drawn to the scent of screaming. But yeah, I remember this did catch some excitement. People still remembered Jazam the Djinn fondly at that point.
That Grinning Demon seems like a friendly fellow.
Yeah, well, he tries to be. Hunted Cadaver. I always thought this one was a little bit odd because it's one of those few... For some reason, cards that start with H, they don't like to capitalize the first letter. Most other alphabets in the cards, if they start with some other letter of the alphabet, it's all capitalized. But for some reason, H, they don't like to. So here we got a 2/2 for 4, zombie. When Hunted Cadaver deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, that player discards 3 cards from his or her hand. So basically, it's the Mind Stab Thrall effect. Except you're paying 1 more for it, but you can morph it for 2. So, and it's a zombie, so it plays into zombie decks a bit better. But basically, this is a repurposed Mind Stab Thrall into black. Into zombies. And they've added the morph and tweaked the cost accordingly. A lot of chat happening. Let me know if I'm missing anything exciting.
I just threatened to keep Alias's winnings.
Right.
And I forgot about his winnings.
Next, we've got head games. 5 cost sorcery. Target opponent puts the cards from his or her hand on top of his or her library. Search that player's library for that many cards. The player puts those cards into his or her hand and then shuffles his or her library. So basically, you're messing with what your opponent's got in their hand. This is a little bit like Jester's Mask in that resolve, except a little bit quicker, but locked into black, and dependent on how many cards they had in the first place. So, yeah, it's interesting, but I can't say I've ever seen it used. But it's a fun card that if you just want to mess with somebody. Next, we got Headhunter, another cleric in black. So 1/1 for 2. You can morph it for a single black if you want to get the surprise. When it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card from his or her hand. And then we've got Infest. Infest is actually decent removal, sort of like a Pyroclasm, except in black. Costs 3 though. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, so it'll kill off the small ones. Or if it's a bigger one that's taken a hit, there you go, that could do it too. It's from Phage that this evil springs, and to her it shall return, Achroma, Angelic Avenger. We'll follow it up with a Misery Charm. Here's the black charm. For this set, 1 black instant, you can destroy target cleric, or return target cleric card from your graveyard to your hand, or target player loses 2 life. Yeah, it's pretty narrow. If you're not playing with clerics, or against them, you're down to 1 option. So yeah, it's that's what it is. Not one of the better ones.
Mixed with
It's still not horrible
stuff,
to.
it gets crazy, says Alias.
Not horrible to make them discard 2.
There's. I was talking about Infest.
Yeah, Infest is a pretty decent card. It always has been, but I have no doubt that there's ways to make it more obnoxious now. Next, we've got the good old Nantuko Husk. 2/2 for 3. Sacrifice a creature. Nantuko Husk gets +2/+2 until end of turn. You don't see a lot of zombie insects, but here's one. Nantuko Shade, I think, was something similar that could pump. I think that one was a 2/1 for 2, and it had the Shade ability where you could pay a black to give +1/+1, which was pretty good for Shades at the time. But this, if you've got extra creatures around, this can get dangerous in a hurry if you need to finish somebody off. Can we? Oh,
I'm just
sneaking
distracting everybody while you blow your nose again. Look what I found at Walmart.
Oh man.
For you non-Magic fans, or your those who are Pokemon fans, they had these at Walmart, so I grabbed a few.
Yeah. You're impressed with that set, aren't you?
I like the art. It's not a huge set, so I think it's doable to get it finished.
Well, we'll see.
So, and the cards aren't that expensive either.
That's empty. Anyway,
We got the big one in the set, so we're good.
we've got this yours.
Is my water. You
My
need more
water's
water?
empty too.
I'm guessing you don't want more tea.
No, I gotta go to bed soon, so
Unless you want
no more
peppermint
tea.
tea.
No. But yeah. Next we're on to Oversold Cemetery, which is a pretty good card. This is another one that I use in several of my decks at times. 2 black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So it gives you a regular supply of creatures coming back once you get a certain point in the game. Yeah, this one has certainly seen some work for me. Next, this can be fun and powerful in the right setup. Patriarch's Bidding. 5 cost sorcery. Each player chooses a creature type. Each player returns all creature cards of a type chosen this way from his or her graveyard to play. So you're only getting back the cards from your graveyard of the chosen type, but you can get back those plus any of the other types from your own graveyard that anyone else chose as well. So it's going to be fun in a group situation for sure. A lot of stuff coming on back. Excuse me. Tribal ducks love it. Yep, they sure do. Profane Prayers. 4 for a sorcery. Profane Players deals X damage to target creature or player, and you gain X life, where X is the number of clerics in play.
Blow your nose already?
I did. It's man, I'm getting real stuffy. So that's 2 reasons. 1, I have to work tomorrow morning, so I need to get to bed soon. And 2, hopefully I can get rid of this stuffy nose before we continue here.
I'll see if I can find something to help.
But I will wrap up black before we end here tonight. Prowling Pangolin. A beast. 5 for a 6/5. When Prowling Pangolin comes into play, any player may sacrifice 2 creatures. If a player does, sacrifice Prowling Pangolin. That is a bit of a tongue twister.
Do you want one
It's
of these?
always hungry, yet easily sated. It's a neat idea. It's a fair-sized creature. Nowadays, I'm sure you can do better. It's not as special getting a 6/5 for 5, but giving people the option to sacrifice creatures is always interesting, at least. I think Patriarch's bidding was big with Goblins and Siege Gang Commander at the time. Yeah, that seems familiar. That or the other Goblin Lord who gives all Goblins haste, and you could just swing in with a massive horde all at once. It was fun
that's
too.
not bad.
You got a nighttime something?
You want a nighttime? You might start getting drowsy. You're going to be done soon.
Yeah, I guess.
I think you're supposed to take 2, but there's only 1 here. I gotta get some more cold medicine.
Next, we got the good old Rotlung Reanimator. Who remembers this guy? Zombie Cleric, 2/2 for 3. Whenever Rotlung Reanimator or another cleric is put into a graveyard from play, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token into play. Again, you wanted to have a mix because you needed to have clerics being put into graveyards, but, you know, your creature would tend to...
I just drank your water.
Yeah, I know. Not probably the best idea at the moment.
You know how we're all going to be sick in no time.
Oh, boy. But yeah, there's another one that I used to throw into some of my zombie decks at times. Or if that Cabal Archon was around sometimes and I needed more 3-drops, they work nicely together too. There's no command for woo yet. Yeah, apparently not. Screeching Buzzard. There's a bird for black. Go figure, it's the buzzard. You get 2/2 flying for 4. When Screeching Buzzard is put into a graveyard from play, each opponent discards a card from his or her hand. A little bit slow and small, but it does give you some advantage. Severed Legion, usually, unless they have no cards in hand. 2/2 Fear Zombie for 3. Not too exciting, but it's your basic zombie, basically. No one in Epheto answered a knock at the door after sundown. There's Shade's Breath. 2 cost. Until end of turn, each creature you control becomes black, and its creature type becomes Shade, and it gains. Pay a black, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So yeah. That can be quite irritating when your opponent doesn't know which of your creatures you're going to pump by how much, and you've got a bunch of open. But yeah, you need to have a number of creatures on the board to generally make this worthwhile, and a lot of mana up. If you've just got the one, it's easier to manage, like just one creature. The Grim Business of the Colosseum casts long shadows. Next, we've got Shepherd of Rot. again, another zombie cleric. There's quite a few of those cards with that combination in this set, and they do work nicely with each other. 1/1 for 2, and you can tap it. Each player loses 1 life for each zombie in play. Can speed up the process. My priest swore loyalty to the Cabal, not until death, but beyond it. Next, we've got the Silent Spectre. This card, I believe, was the pre-release card for this set. If you went to the pre-release tournament, you got a foiled version of this with the date stamped on it. So it was a 4/4 for 6 flying. When Silent Spectre deals combat damage to a player, that player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. So sort of like a double Hypnotic Spectre. 4/4 flying instead of 2/2 flying, but for double the cost as well. You got to pay 6 instead of 3. But you can morph it for 5. And, so it's got the evasion if you just have it out as a 4/4 flyer for 6. With the nasty downside. But if you morphed it, it doesn't have the invasion, but you got the surprise factor. So whatever you think is better in the situation. Certainly a big old Spectre.
That is a cool card.
It is neat. I don't think it's
it's the art
particularly great,
I
but
like the art.
it is neat. Next we got Smother. And this is pretty good removal for black, really. Destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less. It can't be regenerated. Bigger creatures, yeah, they certainly can be troublesome. But if you're getting rid of something that costs 3, you're coming out ahead on your mana usage. 2 is still even. And there's a lot of things that this can deal with. It's a pretty good little piece of removal. It is troublesome that it can't destroy, expensive things, but usually you can find a useful target for it. I can't hear them scream, but at least I don't have to listen to them beg. Good old Phage again. Then we've got the Soulless one. Now this is the zombie 4-cost zombie avatar. Soulless one's power and toughness are each equal to the number of zombies in play, plus the number of zombie cards in all graveyards. So this one gets even bigger, because it includes the graveyards. And, doesn't have any extra abilities, but it just gets bigger. And being a zombie, whatever other bonuses you get from zombies, this one definitely saw a lot of play.
Void, he goes, Soulless one? He's like, oh, thought someone was asking for me.
Well, there's that. But, yeah.
Void, it's your spirit animal. Oh, boy.
Yeah, those stars for 4, a lot of them saw play, and that was certainly one of the ones that I think saw most. Maybe not the most. I think the Goblin one is the one I saw the most, but that one definitely did turn up regularly. Next, we got a Spined Basher, a zombie beast for 3/1 for 3, and you can morph it. And that's about it. How cute! Does it do any other tricks?
Black was always my
really.
favorite mana to build. Says Tank.
It wasn't really mine. I like to splash it sometimes. But it certainly can do some pretty strong stuff. I'll give it that. Strong Arm Tactics. 2-cost sorcery. Each player discards a card from his or her hand. Then each player who didn't discard a creature card this turn or this way loses 4 life. So there's a way to force some life loss, card draw, discard, or both. Unfortunately, you do have to do it yourself, but you can plan for it a bit better. It's one of those symmetrical, not quite symmetrical cards. Usually you can find better ways of getting ahead than this, though. If you can't pay your gambling debts, you just might be tomorrow's main attraction at the Grand Coliseum. Again, in multiplayer, it does get a bit more interesting, because it's one of those each-player cards. Next, we got SWAT. Horrific art on this one. Good old Phage facing down a noble. 2 black and 1 for an instant. Destroy target creature with power 2 or less, and you can cycle it away if you're not having very many small creatures to have to deal with. But unlike Smother, usually you're dealing with small creatures and it costs a little bit more, whereas Smother costs a little bit less and can deal with creatures that are a bit bigger than this, typically. So, of the two, I tended to prefer Smother over Swat, even if this does have the cycling option. Few who cross Phage have a chance to repeat the mistake. I'm waiting for a card with that effect. Discard a creature to get slapped with a fish. Next, we've got Siphon Mind. Pay 4. Each other player discards a card from his or her hand. You draw a card for each card discarded this way. In a duel, it's not really that impressive. If they don't happen to have cards in their hand by the time that you get to 4, this is pretty useless. And even if they do have a card, yeah, you're paying 4 to make them discard 1 and you draw 1. It's still the difference of 2 cards. Where this really starts to get interesting is in multiplayer. And it gets interesting for its effect, but it also tends to make you an unpopular player at the table, is the problem. So then you've got Siphon Soul. This is a reprint from Legends, which was interesting at the time, and again, interesting in multiplayer scenarios. Siphon Soul deals 2 damage to each other player. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. As Phage drank their energy, a vague memory of Jessica stirred. Then she lost herself again in the joy of her victim's suffering. Very pleasant lady at this point, unfortunately. When tempers run high, it's easy to lose your head, apparently, for that other one. Thrashing Mudspawn, 4/4 for 5. Beast. Whenever a Thrashing Mudspawn is dealt damage, you lose that much life. And you can morph it. This is not great. I mean, yeah, you can surprise it using morph and it doubles in size, but
When was the player?
the downside is
black
pretty
player,
nasty.
popular players. We get as much hate as the blue player, and mind you, blue deserves it.
Well, both black and blue can do some pretty annoying shenanigans. This really isn't working as well as I hoped.
Yeah, maybe you just wait till next Monday to do part 2, because
Yeah, I'll have a chance to
hopefully get better.
get that cleared out, and we can save the rest. The rest. The lands, the artifacts, red and green, and my final thoughts we'll save for next Monday. Yeah, unfortunately. But let's finish up black here. Undead Gladiator. 3 cost for a 3/1 Zombie Barbarian. And you can pay a black and a colorless, discard a card from your hand, and return Undead Gladiator from your graveyard to your hand. Play this ability only during your upkeep, and you can cycle it. So, yeah, you can pay 2, discard it, draw a card, and then you can get it back whenever you feel like. This guy is more annoying, and certainly a little bit easier to recur than that Cold Snap Zombie Knight that can only be played from your graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
That one takes a lot more setup. This one works a little bit more smoothly. And this is zombie. Next, we've got the legendary 6-cost beastie from black, Viscera the Dreadful. 5/5 flying for 6 is not bad in black. Fair size flyer in itself. And the ability to tap to destroy target creature, and it can't be regenerated, with no restrictions on the creature's color or anything like that, is a nice option and ability to have. My eyes are my strongest feature. Yeah, well, for a Gorgon, that pretty much makes sense. I remember Viscera being being a popular option. I mean, if you had a nightmare that cost 6, it could get bigger, but
I
yeah.
wonder who our hairstylist is.
Well, there's that. The rest of the nose. Is that? Yeah, well, yes. Speaking of me, not the card, I assume.
Yes, I'm assuming so.
1/1 for 3. Zombie. Pay a black and tap it. Creatures of the type of your choice. Attack this turn if able. So this would be sort of like good old Nettling Imp, except it can force multiple creatures because it's type-based effect, instead of just picking on one creature that has to attack you. My old black and white deck was pretty fun. Helped me learn how to make my opponent mad. Yeah, black and white can be a really interesting combination at times.
That could be fun actually to do a like learn how to play game or something like that, and how to build a deck.
Could be. Alright, we got our last few black cards here. Then it would be red, but like I said, we'll save that for another time. Red gets into beasts and goblins, so yeah, it can be fun too.
Or build a deck. How to build a deck the wrong way.
Well,
just for fun.
Maybe. Withering Hex for 1 black, enchant creature. Whenever a player cycles a card, put a plague counter on Withering Hex. Enchanted creature gets -1/-1 for each plague counter on Withering Hex. So yeah, it's creature removal basically, but it's slow and it depends on how much cycling is going on. There's no wonder I don't remember this card seeing a whole lot of play. Words of Waste. 3 for an enchantment. The next time you would draw a card this turn, each opponent discards a card from his or her hand instead. Well, that'll definitely help keep the hand sizes down if they aren't already.
Try an all-color deck. It isn't the best.
You really need to have good mana fixing to make all colors work. It can have some nice tricks. Yeah, I used to run.
How are you doing?
I used to run an all-color deck with some legacy weapons and things like that, and things that you could get protection from any color by spending any color. It's got some neat tricks, but it is tricky to pull off for sure. Yeah. And then finally we've got Wretched Anurid. 3/3 for 2, Zombie Beast. Whenever another creature comes into play, you lose a life. So it's meant to be an early beast stick and then get out of the way before too many more creatures come into play. It is not bad. Kind of like the old Urg Raiders or things, but yeah, you gotta be careful with those downsides. Anyway, I'm sorry, but it's getting late. I do have to work tomorrow, and with this stuffy nose, I think it's best if we cut this one into 2 parts. Onslaught is a very sizable set.
Do you want to switch it to you?
With 350 cards in the set.
Yeah.
Whoop, we'll flip it around here. So yeah, I think I'm gonna call it there and
Thug
get to bed.
especially likes and shared you out onto my community. Thank you, One Thug.
Yeah.
We're just ending, but I mean.
But yeah, I like going through some of these old sets. And like I say, this one isn't as old as some of the other ones I've covered. Not as unique as Portal 3 Kingdoms or Fallen Empires or Homelands and things like that. But it's got the same sort of appeal that you see in sets like Alliances and Stronghold, where it's known for a couple of really strong cards. But there's a lot of other goodies hidden in there too. And I do prefer the classic borders myself. So this being the final block that had the classic borders and just starting to see the creature creep for power levels really make it an interesting set to dig through. I understand they've even got a format now for sort of classic border sets and beyond, and as a specific play pool. I don't know how they've tweaked the rules for that, but it does intrigue me, and maybe one day I'll look into it. But I do have some other sets that I collected after this. First time to be on your live. Well, thank you. One Thug.
Yeah, we do have all our lives, our past lives are up too, so feel free to rewatch it.
Growing my hair and beard out again. I miss it. Yeah.
You've been here before?
I need to I need to trim.
It's, you know what? It's easy to forget when you've been somewhere because I've gone somewhere and I've forgotten I was on their streams before too.
Yeah. So yeah, this set, the block that came before it was Odyssey, Torment, and Judgment, and then this one
Maybe
is
your first Magic stream. I don't know.
Onslaught, followed by
Here, let's just.
what was it? Legions, and then
Oops.
what was the last one?
Hi.
It was the Scourge. So it had a lot of strong cards in it, and I'll deal with. Why am I forgetting the name? What did I say the second set was in this block?
I don't remember.
Legions. I'll deal with Legions a little bit more when I touch on the slivers, because I'm planning on doing an episode all about slivers. Well, not all about, but the first 3 waves of slivers that hit anyway. First in Tempest block, and then in Onslaught primarily, and then they struck again in Time Spiral.
Alias, I'm
And
also
then
new here.
They've
You're
kept
funny,
coming in
Alias.
other waves since then, but those are the 3 waves that I recall the best. So those are the ones I'm looking forward to talking about. But for now, yeah, we'll have to save the rest of Onslaught, and I'll tackle it next week, hopefully.
Also, who's ready for the holiday season?
Which that applies.
I got this.
They got them all the decorations up all
Yeah.
at once, so they're starting to bring out Thanksgiving stuff,
Yeah,
Christmas
stuff.
stuff,
Yeah.
Halloween stuff, back to school stuff. It all hits at once these days. It's kind of a
You guys
mess.
are awesome. A lot of the Pokemon community channels, your names has a lot of love and respect that much. Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
We do. And we like to keep it mixed up a little bit. Like I said, I used to play Magic more than I do, and I still like to talk about some of my memories, even if I don't open as much anymore as I used to. But we still do open some Pokemon, and I've got some other old games that I like to talk about, and occasionally
I
open
make the
stuff
Pokemon
up, so.
pop into the Magic the Gathering streams once in a while.
Yeah. So we've got other odds and ends.
Yeah.
Like I said, I recently found that Monty Python binder I'm looking to dig into one Saturday, and we do some Star Trek and Lord of the Rings and other stuff too. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
looking forward to continuing this as time goes on.
I think we're lopsided on here. Oops.
Probably.
The camera's all lopsided.
Yeah, I got my grumpy shirt on.
Yeah.
So it's not entirely unfitting. Things have been a little bit awkward today. But,
Yeah.
what can you do? But yeah, thanks for joining us. We better wrap this up.
We're all ready for bed. All right. Well, we will probably do the Monty Python on Saturday? Next Saturday? Or no?
Maybe.
We'll see. All right. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We appreciate you.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's another whole thing. They actually came out with a Magic
Who
secret layer
re-rating?
for that recently, and I missed it.
Who's live?
So
We can try and raid somebody. Everybody stick around if you want to live somebody. Let's live somebody.
Finding the old card.
You know what would
game
be
with-
hilarious? To just raid some random YouTuber that's not like Magic or Pokemon. Let's go raid a lawyer that I watch.
Well, that would be different.
I don't comment much on there, but just a second. Leave the way. Yeah.
Let's hold this up before I splutter on.
Let's just see who it says. I want to go to home because that's sometimes.
But yeah, now that there's actually a person or two here, since before when I
wanna
mentioned
show
it, there
that?
weren't.
Spencer's live. We can go over to Spencer.
Does anyone else have a clearer idea if there was an actual resolution for morph cards and camouflage? Because that's just, it creates all kinds of problems when you try to camouflage morphed creatures. Because you gotta track them, but you can't track them. And you gotta flip them, but you can't flip them.
Yeah, we'll go over
Camouflage
to.
and morph do not play well together, as I've discovered on
Why won't it let me share it?
more than one
Oh, there you go.
occasion now.
All right, so there's Spencer McKay's. Let's go over there. He's only got 4 people watching. And just go and say Spocat raid. There you go.
Alright.
Feel free to head over there. Too bad we don't have a few more people. We don't usually raid when we're doing Magic streams just because.
I don't know a lot of Magic people that I really
Yeah.
watch. The few that I do aren't doing lives.
You know what
typically.
though?
They
What we
do-
might do
they
is
just do put out
we
videos,
we'll
so-
send a link to their video in the stream at the end of a magic stream sometime, and we'll put that up there for people to go and watch and comment, because at least we can still support them that way and get some new people going their way.
Yeah.
But
We're glad you could join us.
we
Elias.
missed you too, Alias. Thanks for popping back in. So yeah, feel free to go over to Spencer McKay's channel and
please come back and join us for
Yeah.
part 2 of our Onslaught discussion next
on
week.
Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately the timing just didn't work out. Plus, fighting the stuff he knows is
I
not pleasant.
know it's not
So-
working.
We'll have to wrap it up in part 2 next Monday night, same time ish, and yeah, hope to see you there.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. We appreciate you. And we'll see you soon. Thursday for not Magic, Pokemon.
Bye
So-
for now.
Bye for now. Good night, everybody.